The Galactic Academy's observation deck hummed with the usual efficiency of 1,000 species, learning to coexist. Instructor Zalthrix, a crystalline being whose faceted body refracted light into dancing rainbows, stood before the assessment terminal with growing concern. For 3 cycles, the human cadets had been unnervingly docile in tactical training sessions, a stark contrast to every other species' aggressive participation. They just sit there, Zalthrix's translator crackled to fellow instructor Morwenna, a floating gas cloud entity. The humans, Vanessa Chen and Venom Drake. Brilliant test scores, impeccable theoretical knowledge, but in simulation combat? Nothing. They observe. They wait. They barely move. Morwenna's chromatic patterns shifted to curious yellow. Perhaps their species lacks warrior instinct. The psychological profiles suggested otherwise. Vanessa sat in the back row of the combat theory lecture, her dark eyes tracking the holographic battlefield display with an intensity that seemed at odds with her relaxed posture. Beside her, Venom slouched in his seat, fingers drumming an absent rhythm on his desk. To any observer, they appeared disengaged, almost bored. The Krelix cadets, 8-foot-tall reptilian warriors, dominated the front rows, hissing enthusiastically at every tactical maneuver. The insectoid Velkari clicked their mandibles in eager discussion. Even the peaceful Luminar delegates participated with gentle but consistent input. Only the humans remained silent. "It's not natural," Zalthrix insisted later that cycle, pulling up their training records. "Every species shows aggression in combat scenarios. It's instinctual. But these two? They're like statues. I'm recommending remedial courses." "Wait." Morwenna pulsed, her gaseous form contracting with sudden interest. "Before you do that, access their homeworld files. Earth's military history." Zalthrix's crystalline fingers danced across the terminal, and the data stream began to flow. The first file opened. Vanessa Chen, service record. Zalthrix's body dimmed, colors fading to shocked gray. 3 tours in the Terran Marine Corps. Classified operations across 4 hostile planets. Decorations for valor. A combat log that read like a horror novel. Building-to-building warfare in a city called Fallujah. Zero-gravity boarding actions against pirate vessels. And something called survival training that involved being dropped in lethal environments with minimal supplies. One entry made Zalthrix pause. Operative Chen held position solo against enemy force 40x her number for 6 hours, using only field-expedient resources. 17 confirmed hostile eliminations, extracted with minor injuries. "By the void," Zalthrix whispered. "Check the other one," Morwenna urged. Venom Drake, service record. If Vanessa's file was disturbing, Venom's was apocalyptic. Special operations, deep reconnaissance in hostile territory for months at a time. A mission log that mentioned something called halo insertion, apparently throwing oneself from orbit with only a parachute. Hand-to-hand combat certifications in 17 different martial disciplines. One note from his commanding officer simply read, "Drake doesn't fight to win. He fights like losing isn't an option. Recommend for any mission where success is mandatory and casualties are acceptable." Zalthrix's form flickered. "This can't be accurate. They're so calm, so quiet." "Keep reading," Morwenna said, her colors now a deep, thoughtful purple. A psychological evaluation appeared. Human soldiers from combat backgrounds often display what researchers term tactical patience. Having experienced real warfare where mistakes cost lives, they develop extreme situational awareness and threat assessment capabilities. In training environments they perceive as non-lethal. They default to observation mode, gathering maximum intelligence while expending minimum energy. This is not disengagement. This is professional discipline. Another file opened automatically, a comparative study of human versus galactic combat doctrine. Most species fought with instinct and honor codes. Elaborate challenges, frontal assaults, prescribed rules of engagement. The Krelix roared before attacking. The Velkari announced their strikes. Even the savage Krenth observed ritualistic combat protocols. Humans fought to survive. The file contained vid footage from Earth's conflicts. Zalthrix watched, horrified and fascinated, as human soldiers moved through urban terrain like ghosts. No honor challenges. No fair warning. Just brutal, efficient violence applied with surgical precision to achieve objectives. One tactical manual entry stated simply, "If you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics are wrong." They're not passive, Zalthrix realized, crystalline body brightening with understanding. They're hunting even here. Especially here. Morwenna contracted into a tight, thoughtful sphere. They're cataloging every species' combat style, learning weaknesses, memorizing patterns. That's why they sit quietly. They're working. The next cycle, Zalthrix approached Vanessa and Venom after class. Both humans looked up with polite, patient expressions that the instructor now recognized as the calm of apex predators completely in control. "I reviewed your files," Zalthrix said carefully. "Your Earth military records." Vanessa's expression didn't change, but something predatory flickered in her eyes. "And? Why don't you participate more actively in combat simulations?" Venom leaned back, that casual slouch now reading as coiled readiness. "With respect, instructor, these are games. The Kralix telegraph every move 3 seconds early. The Velkari cluster too tight. One grenade would eliminate their entire formation. The Luminar expose their flanks when advancing. You've been analyzing everyone," Zalthrix stated. "That's what you do when lives might depend on it," Vanessa said quietly. "Back home, the quiet ones aren't weak. They're the dangerous ones. The ones who survived long enough to learn that noise gets you killed." Morwenna floated closer. "Show us in the next simulation. Show us what you can do." Venom and Vanessa exchanged glances. Some wordless communication passed between them, the kind that only comes from shared trauma and trust forged in fire. "You sure?" Venom asked the instructors. "We don't usually go full speed in training. Someone might get hurt." "The simulations have safety protocols," Zalthrix assured. Vanessa smiled, and it was not a comfortable expression. "All right then." The next combat simulation began routinely. 50 cadets from a dozen species deployed into a urban warfare scenario. Objectives: capture strategic points, eliminate opposition, survive. The Kralix charged with their usual roaring fury. The Velkari coordinated their advance. The Luminar established defensive positions. Vanessa and Venom simply vanished. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the enemy force markers began disappearing from instructor displays, not dying spectacularly, just blinking out. 1, then 3, then 7. Where are they? A Kralix cadet snarled, whipping around. Venom materialized behind him like a nightmare, simulation blade at his throat. "Dead," he said conversationally, and the cadet's armor registered a kill shot before he could react. Across the battlefield, Vanessa had infiltrated the Velkari position using their own clustered formation as cover. 6 eliminations in 12 seconds, moving through them like smoke. The instructors watched in stunned silence as the two humans systematically dismantled forces that outnumbered them 25-1. No wasted movement, no unnecessary risks. Just ruthless, terrifying efficiency. When it ended, 4 minutes and 17 seconds later, Vanessa and Venom stood in the simulation's center, barely winded, surrounded by dead cadets who looked like they'd seen ghosts. Zalthrix's colors cycled through confusion, fear, and finally understanding. "So," Venom said, "back to that casual slouch. Still want us to participate more?" The instructor looked at the combat logs, then at the humans, then back at the logs. "I think," Zalthrix said slowly, "we need to redesign our entire combat curriculum." Vanessa smiled. "We sit quietly because we're listening, instructor. Learning, preparing." Her eyes hardened. "And when we move to win. That's the human way." Morwenna pulsed thoughtfully. "Humanity fund, yeah, indeed.